Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Frank Connolly. He's the senior editor at MindEdge, and he's a former political pollster. Frank, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here, Kevin. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. You kind of have an interesting perspective on a bunch of things, but maybe before we kind of get into what you're doing now, maybe let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. I'm a native of New York City. I grew up in the borough of Queens, New York's largest and some would say dullest borough.
Sure.
But since the mid '70s, I've been up in Massachusetts. I came up here for college and stayed. I spent about 10 years after college as a journalist.
Sure.
Writing in the alternative media, places like the Boston Phoenix and
Sure.
and a lot of freelance magazine work. And then I sort of fell into politics. I spent the next 25 years or so as a political consultant and pollster, working for a firm in Boston. We happen to be on the Democratic side of the fence, but I'm not here to talk politics now.
Sure.
That's simply it's just part of my background, and it does inform sort of the work that some of the work that I've done here at MindEdge, which is been working with a couple of different public opinion surveys, and one of which is I think the focus of what we're probably going to talk about in a little bit. But so I have a background in journalism and politics. But what I'm doing now is working as a senior editor at MindEdge. We're an online learning company based outside of Boston. We develop courses for both for academic credit and for professional development, and we like to think we're pretty much on the cutting edge in terms of technology, and our courses are highly interactive, and that and we see that as a lot of folks in the ed tech business do. We see that as really as the future. I mean, the old days of sitting down and reading a textbook or just staring at a screen and just reading words as though you were reading a textbook are thankfully passing by, and we seem to be entering a more interactive and dynamic phase in providing online courses.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually really, really quite interesting. And I actually kind of think, and maybe it's probably controversial to say, like, I don't know how much longer kind of traditional education will be around. Not in the sense that I think it's bad. It's just in some cases, some people can't get a job once they go through kind of a big degree or kind of PhD or whatever, right? And I think, and with the cost, it almost might be just not affordable for some people, or it might not even be needed at some point. And so I'm always kind of curious to see companies like you guys that are kind of pushing the envelope a little bit with that, right? And kind of saying maybe we're not replacing you, but you're kind of providing an alternative. Or once you've gone through post-secondary education, you still need to kind of learn and keep up with things if you want to kind of advance your career.
Well, yeah, that's certainly the role of professional development. I mean, where we are is we like to see ourselves as sort of facilitating the process of education. We're not trying to replace. We're not trying to replace conventional universities. We're trying to or schools, but we are trying to give them new tools that will do a couple things. First, to engage students more. Because that's really the name of the game is keeping students involved and interested, and also certainly to the extent that universities are able to make a higher proportion of their classes to be online, that has positive cost implications.
Right.
I think that the more you have online courses, the greater the benefit in terms of trying to rein in educational costs, which I agree with you completely have been, they have been increasing far faster than the pace of inflation. I mean, I remember when I was, and I'm dating myself here,
It's all
but
good,
when
man.
I was in in college in the mid late '70s, and it was a huge deal when the tuition, room, and board hit $7,000 a year.
Sure.
And now you routinely see, at least among the quote unquote more selective or elite colleges, you routinely see $55,000 a year, which is really pricing a lot of families out of the market. So, to the extent that it is possible to integrate elements of an online learning program into existing educational structures, it should be able to help. We think not only provide a quality educational experience, but also to help restrain some of those costs.
Sure. No, I think that's great. So how exactly does the platform kind of work, and how do you guys kind of work with kind of universities and kind of higher education?
Well, what we do is we work with in a very collaborative arrangement with our various partners. We've got we work with a number of colleges and universities in the United States. I don't think we have any involvement up in Canada yet, Kevin, but
No,
but
that's all
we'd
good.
certainly be open to it.
Sure, it's coming.
And
Right?
we have a number of courses in a wide range of areas that we have developed over the years, and sometimes a college or a university, or, and as I said, we do a lot of professional development work too for professional associations and the like. Sometimes they will ask us to develop a brand new course. Sometimes they will ask us to adapt an existing course to either add to it or to expand it to include different subject areas. And the basis of our courses is to be as interactive as possible.
Okay.
We have a lot of videos and things like that, but we also have simulations, games, puzzles, anything to basically to keep people interested, because I don't know about you, but I can remember a lot of times in college with a stack of books to read and not really being terribly interested and wanting to do that.
Sure.
The more interesting and engaging and interactive we can make our courses, I think, the more likely students are going to want to delve into the work and and finish the coursework. And this isn't a substitute for the educational substance. It's just it is a way to try and engage people to delve into that substance and to really pay attention to it.
Sure. And well, I also think too that different people learn in different ways, right? And sometimes
Absolutely.
just how you go through and learn certain things, like a traditional classroom may or may not be the way to do it. Sometimes like you want to go all online, or some people aren't motivated enough
Yep.
to kind of sit online and go through, courses online. They kind of need a bit of both. So it's a little bit all
Yep.
over the map. And so I'm curious to know how, like you kind of covered it roughly, but like how do you guys kind of make sure that people actually, get through the courses and stuff like that? I know you guys kind of do a bunch of different things with kind of, surveys and results and kind of, there's a bunch of ways that you guys kind of do it with data science and whatnot. So do you maybe want to kind of give an overview of how you guys actually kind of keep people engaged and prove that you're keeping people engaged?
Well, yeah, and that's two different questions. And I will preface this. By saying that I'm a word guy, not a tech guy.
Gotcha.
We've got a team of tech geniuses who have enormous heads and eat nothing but fish. They're so bright, but, and they're the ones in charge of the highly technical stuff that
sure.
I usually just say it's magic, but we certainly do have there are each of our courses has a dashboard.
Okay.
Through which teachers and administrators can view who has completed which assignments.
Okay.
Each course consists of a series of discrete web pages. Each one constitutes an assignment.
Okay.
And the dashboard keeps track of each individual learner, which pages he or she has visited, and in a lot of instances there is an activity that needs to be completed on that page or that assignment, and until that activity or assignment is completed, the dashboard does not show that the learner has completed that page, and therefore you can't finish the course and get credit for the course until you've completed all the pages.
Gotcha.
Or all the assignments. So there is a control mechanism there administered through the dashboard that keeps very close track of which learners have completed which assignments. In terms of encouraging people to complete the work, other than the larger stricture out there, which is if you don't complete the work, you don't get credit for the course.
Sure.
But in terms of encouraging them, we try and make the courses as engaging as possible, and that includes both graphical layout, making the pages not just aesthetically attractive, but also not too copy heavy.
Sure.
Because there's nothing more intimidating than looking at a page and there's this big block of words. And there are things that you can do to make that more palatable in terms of linking out to shorter readings, using a lot of video, using a lot of interactive devices to keep people interested. So there, it's really a mix of things. Some of it is extremely high tech that I couldn't explain to you at gunpoint.
Sure. I got
like
you.
I said, we'd have to go to some of those giant brain guys and gals in our office who could. And other stuff is fairly basic. I mean, it's attractive design, engaging content, a lot of videos to keep people clicking through, a lot of infographics to summarize a lot of heavy copy into a graphical form and organizing it in a way that it's more easily accessible to learners. So,
Sure.
There are a lot of different techniques to try and draw people in and keep them involved and engaged. And then, as I said, there is the dashboard and the technical means of tracking exactly how people have how far they have gone into the course.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's interesting too, because obviously like teachers have a certain way of teaching, and it's not good or bad. It's just it works for kind of certain people. And I remember I was never really good at like math, for example, and like there was always like I needed to learn some sort of like not like little kind of trick to figure out certain types of like math problems. And I think just being able to kind of come at it different ways with you kind of have diagrams or videos or stuff like that, right? And just being able to kind of pick the method that works best for the learner, I think is super powerful, because I think certain people fail stuff that they might be able to get it if it was just told to them in a different way, right? And I love how you guys kind of add the ability to kind of have that kind of like almost like a tutor or like a side kind of way of helping people through some of this stuff.
That's right. And to get back to what you were mentioning before too about different styles of learning. I mean, there are, the traditional, there are visual. Traditionally, our textbook learning was primarily visual.
Sure.
But there are some people who are not primarily visual learners. They're auditory learners, or they're tactile learners, or they use different senses to absorb information in the way that's most efficient for them. So, as you know, there a lot of auditory learners would benefit from your podcast,
sure,
as opposed to reading it in a book. And so we try to incorporate as many different media for presenting information as we can, so that we try and engage all of the different types of learners.
No, I think that's great, and I think the other thing that was reading about on your site that I thought was really interesting, that I think people sometimes forget, is you guys focus on accessibility as well, right? And there's a lot of things that you can do,
absolutely,
kind of in the browser or on a device that will help somebody with a disability, right?
Oh, absolutely, and that's crucial. And there are certain legal requirements that any company in our business has to meet, but
sure,
we pride ourselves, I think, in going beyond what's legally required and what is really best practices for helping people with any sort of a disability to keep our courses accessible to them. So there are, the tech geniuses have come up with various accessibility scanners to make sure that all the screen readers are functioning. We have a tool to make sure that different contrasting colors on the page are done in such a way that they enhance rather than decrease the legibility of the written word. And so there are all sorts of important things that we do and we do routinely in every course to make sure that that accessibility is as not simply as great as it needs to be to comply with the law, but to go beyond that and to make sure that our courses are fully accessible for everyone with any sort of a need in that area.
Sure. And then you guys kind of have a mobile app side of things. Is it pretty much the entire course on an app, or does it really depend?
Some of our older courses are not adapted to the mobile app yet. Everything we're doing now, mm-hmm. All of our newer courses, and we are in the process of converting the older courses to make sure that they can be viewed on a mobile device.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean that's where EdTech is going. I mean,
sure.
you've got to be mobile accessible, and that entails doing different things with graphics and coding things differently.
Right.
But it absolutely has to be done, because I forget what percentage of learners are using a mobole device rather than a desktop or a laptop. But it's a considerable high percentage, and it's going to grow every month. So
sure.
So
no, go ahead. Sorry.
No.
I was just going to say. So from the higher education side of things, you work with institutions. Like, I can't just come and say I want to take a history class from you guys, or can I?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Typically, the academic courses are you gain access to them through a college or university. We call them our learning partners. So, generally those are administered through the schools. We have on the professional development side, the non-academic side, We offer courses both through professional associations, but also there are a certain number of courses that are standalones that you could come to our website and just buy as an individual, and a lot of those result in certificates that are credentials that folks will list on LinkedIn and all that sort of
Right.
and that sort of thing. So it's certainly the professional development side. There's a fair amount of individual course taking, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't give you percentages on the academic side, but it's my impression that the very, very large majority of those courses, if not all of them, I just don't have the answer for you,
Sure.
but the very large majority, or perhaps all of them, are administered through colleges and universities that we've partnered with.
Got you. Okay. So on kind of the more kind of commercial side of business side of things, how does one kind of, okay, so like I come to you guys and I say, I have this idea, I want to train my staff on X topic. How do you guys
Mm-hmm.
kind of work with me to make that happen?
Well, there's a couple different ways. One would be if it is an area in which we already have existing courses, then we would talk to you. Let's say we have courses in IT security, security awareness, which is a big area for where companies want to train their employees. We do a lot of work in project management and nonprofit management and other areas too. But those are some professional development areas. And so,
Sure.
If it's an area in which we already have an existing course or an existing suite of courses, we would talk with you as the business owner. Which of these are you interested in for your staff, and also how can we adapt them to suit your particular needs? If it's a completely new area that we're getting into, or that you would like us to get into, then we need to work. We will locate and work with subject matter experts who will. I mean, they provide the content. I mean, I'm not an expert in anything, to be honest. What I am is an editor.
Sure.
I'm an editor, and that's a big part of the function that we do here. Is we know who we look for, people who are expert in their fields, get them to produce very, very high quality content, and then we aggregate it and we put it into an accessible form and an interactive form and all that. But I remember when I first started doing this, my sister-in-law, who's a teacher down in New York, she said, "Well, how can you be teaching a course? You don't have a PhD." I said, "Well, I'm not teaching the course, right? All I'm doing is I'm editing the textbook. The textbook just happens to be made of electrons rather than ink and paper. So that's an online course. Really is much more analogous to a textbook than to anything else. And we are not. We are here at MindEdge. We are not the subject matter experts ourselves. We go out to people who have specialized in these particular areas and have devoted, in many cases, their lives, their careers to them. And what we try to do is elicit their expertise and then get it into a form where it's accessible through in the online environment to as many learners as possible.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And I think I just kind of want to make sure that the listener kind of gets a clear understanding of kind of what you guys kind of provide and do. And that makes a lot of sense, right? And I think you got to have customers that if they come like as from a business and comes to you and said, I want to teach the rest of the staff about this certain thing that, I know about, you guys would build that, right? And if they, okay. No, that makes sense. That's really cool.
Yep.
So, no, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No. Again,
so I'm curious then to know, where do you guys kind of want to take the platform, and where do you kind of see kind of online learning going in the future?
Well, and certainly in a technical sense. I mean, we've touched on it already. I mean,
sure.
Mobile
Yeah.
Mobile is the future, and that's. But in terms of substance, one of the areas that we have been very interested in is the idea of critical thinking and applying critical thinking skills to online learning and just the online experience.
Okay.
There is one of the things about the internet is there is like more than 1 billion sites worldwide. There is an unprecedented amount of information that
Sure.
is available to people, and you as a developer know that better than I do.
Sure, yeah.
But as we all know, not all of that information is accurate or good information. And as individuals and as a society, we are being almost pelted with so much information. One of the most important skills for the future is the ability to tell the good from the bad, to sort of be able to navigate your way, not in a technical sense, but in an intellectual sense, through this vast amount of information, and just to be able to have a sense of, okay, that seems credible. Maybe I can pursue that, but also be able to look at something and say, no, that's not credible, and I'm not going to waste my time on that. And that derives from the ability to think critically, but to apply those critical thinking skills in an online context. And we think whether the issue is something that is as in the news as quote unquote fake news, or at perhaps a less politically charged level, simply the ability to tell good information from bad, the ability to conduct research in a way that will yield good results and enable people to stay on the path of accuracy rather than being distracted by bad information. We really see that as a very, very important component of education in the future, and we think that it's our schools and universities that are going to need to inculcate that skill, and so we've done some things here in terms of we did a survey last spring that tried to at least add to the public conversation about the fake, not just fake news, but the digital literacy and critical thinking issue. And we think that needs to be a major focus for education moving forward.
No, I think that's really interesting, because I think like I'm kind of at the I'm 34, so like I'm kind of a millennial or almost a millennial. Like some of the younger millennials, I'm like, I don't understand, but so
you're a lot more of a millennial than I am, Kevin. Let me tell you. Sometimes I feel like I've spent a millennium on this planet,
but I think the thing that's interesting about it is, as kind of people grow up with technology, it becomes so like they almost expect it, right? Or certain generations kind of expect that part of their learning or some of their learning or maybe all their learning is kind of digital in some way, right? Because we're certain people of all age ranges are kind of glued to their devices, and I'm guilty as if you could ask anybody I work with, I have more devices than probably most people. So like I'm just as guilty.
I'll bet, yeah.
but it's interesting with somebody like you guys that are kind of bridging that gap a little bit between kind of bringing kind of modern technology and stuff into I think universities and stuff, because I worked at a university and it was kind of building similar kind of stuff a number of years ago, just for individual kind of doctors and whatnot. And it was interesting because it can be quite a struggle for a university, for example, to actually build this stuff internally because of all the kind of politics and whatnot, and a handful of other reasons, where kind of outsourcing it to you guys and kind of working with them just cuts down the bureaucracy. Like, there's almost none, right? And there was a handful of reasons for that, at least in my experience with the university that I worked at a number of years ago. So I think like just coming to somebody like you guys that has this framework in place and all these things that I can basically just drop in my content for, and it's more complicated than that, but you know what I mean? I think it makes a lot of sense, right? And then you guys can give me kind of results and stuff around that.
Yeah, I mean we certainly think so. I mean but our model only works when we're working with the college or the university, right, and really seeking to collaborate, which we do. I mean, there are sometimes either one side or the other gets sort of set on, this is my path and that's my way or the highway, and then that doesn't work. You've got to have both sides working with each other. You set a common goal, and then you bring in your content experts and your designers, and you work with the team, the development team at the college or the university, to produce something that everybody's happy with.
Sure.
We're committed to doing that. That's part of our business model is collaboration and constant improvement. We're always we're continually upgrading our courses as well. So
sure.
But always in collaboration with the folks who are doing the teaching. So that that's it's really important. And I think that what you were saying earlier about especially younger folks. I mean, there's a whole generation of digital natives out there. Younger folks who have grown up on online essentially. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things that we found is that in our survey, which was geared towards, which was a survey of recent college graduates, mm-hmm, and some folks who were still in school. So anybody over 30 didn't make the cut.
Okay, sure.
And so these were digital natives, millennials, I guess you could call them, and they were obviously they recognized the importance of critical thinking, not only as an end in itself, but also as a critical skill in the marketplace and in the job market. I think 64% of the folks in our survey said that critical thinking skills are very important to their current and future job prospects. At the same time, they did not profess an overwhelming degree of confidence in their critical thinking skills. They said, we know it's important, but I think only 35% of them felt very confident that they themselves had the necessary skills to discern false information from websites. And this is something that I learned in my years as a political pollster. You tend to get an even more honest answer when you ask people not about themselves but about their peers.
Sure.
So we asked them, well, how about the folks you work with? How about them? Well, they said only about 20% of them said that they thought that their colleagues or peers in the workplace had good critical thinking skills when it came to online. So now I should qualify that a little bit because we're taking what a pollster would call the hard measure there. We asked people, how confident are you? Are you very confident, fairly confident, not only a little bit confident, not confident at all? And that so that's the pollster's 4-point scale. And
sure.
And the hard measure is just to say what percentage of people say they're very confident. Large numbers of folks did say they thought they were fairly confident, and that's a pretty good measure.
Yep.
But then to sort of get another look at that, the survey, in addition to having a lot of questions in which typical polling questions in which you're asking folks their opinion about something. We actually had a bunch of knowledge questions sprinkled throughout the course of the survey, questions about online practices and critical thinking, et cetera, in which there really were verifiable right and wrong answers.
Okay.
We had 9 of those questions throughout the course of the survey, and what was interesting is the results of those knowledge questions were sort of consistent with the earlier observation that maybe people were right when they said that they weren't all that confident about their critical thinking skills. We had of these 9 questions, 44% of the respondents to the survey got 5 or fewer of those knowledge questions correct. So that's 5 out of 9 is only 55%. That's not a passing grade at any school I ever went to.
Sure, yeah.
Only 8% got all 9 correct, and only 24% got 8 or 9 correct. So, we were not asking people to recite the Magna Carta or explain relativity either. I mean, these were fairly basic questions about online practice and critical thinking. So those results were sort of consistent with the idea that critical thinking skills are something that probably people need to focus on more.
Sure.
And try and bring their skill level up. At the same time, someone. When we first started talking about these results, some people asked, so what is it about millennials? Why can't they do this? And I said, well, we're not singling out millennials here. that happened to be the audience that we looked at in this survey because we wanted to look at recent college graduates because the teaching of critical thinking in an online context is only something that we've seen in the last few years.
Sure.
But if we had asked these same questions of people, I don't know, my age, or people in their 40s or 50s, there's no reason to think that those age cohorts would do any better than the millennials. I think our sense is that this is an issue that folks at every point along the age spectrum need to think about, need to address. I think it's probably a bit more urgent for younger folks just coming out into the workplace because so much of their work is going to be online, and the longer they're in the marketplace, as everything shifts into the online environment, it's younger people who are going to be continually confronted with more and more and more information, more and more online content. So
Sure.
it's probably more urgent that they develop these skills rather than an old fossil like myself who can just always ask his son to figure stuff out for him. But, I've got a 13-year-old. He's really
Sure.
smart. So,
I got you.
But really, and we're not picking on millennials at all. There's absolutely nothing either in our research or that we could think of in any other way to suggest that millennials face some sort of unique critical thinking deficit. No, of course not. It's just they happen to be the ones we ask the questions of.
Sure.
Our guess is that if we ask these same questions of people who are older, we would get probably pretty similar answers.
Sure. So are you guys planning on doing other kind of surveys that generate kind of interesting results?
Well, we're going to do this, the online critical thinking survey. We're going to do that every year.
Okay.
We're going to do it in the springtime every year, and then we'll be able to, compare results from year to year to get to develop trend lines and see, with luck, things will be trending up, and
Sure.
And then we're going to be doing a couple surveys in other areas that aren't related to this. I think it's we're probably doing surveys because I used to do surveys and they and that's sort of a value added that I bring here. But we are definitely going to continue this, and we're going to make this an annual survey of critical thinking skills. And I think, as I said, we hope that the result's going to be positive, but one way or another, I think it'll be interesting. It's an area that I think it's really important.
Sure. Very much so.
And it is something that I think people are starting to pay more and more attention to. So, we think that there'll be more and more people who are interested in seeing the results of the survey as it proceeds from year to year.
No, I 100% agree. But sadly, Frank, we're coming to the end of the show. So
okay,
maybe let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself and MindEdge, and where they can find the survey results and dive a little bit deeper.
Sure. And we are, in fact, we call this this is our Dig Deeper initiative. And there are a couple things. The survey results are available on our website, which is www.mindedge.com. I also I don't have anywhere near your listenership, Kevin, but I host an occasional podcast.
Nice.
On issues related to this, and that's we're on SoundCloud, we're on iPod. It's the Dig Deeper: Critical Thinking in the Digital Age podcast,
nice.
and there is. I'm not sure that it is, and I should know this. I know that for a while, at least, we were offering a free mini course on critical thinking, and I'm not sure if that is still up or not. But if it is, it will be accessible on the MindEdge the corporate website.
You do have a Dig Deeper: Critical Thinking in the Digital Age, and on the button it says "See Survey Results" and sign up for a free course. So I'm assuming it's still out there, so people can check that out.
So
it's
still open.
Of the site. Yeah.
Yep. Now you know better than I do. So.
Perfect.
But.
Well, Frank, I really appreciate you taking the time into your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you. And have a good rest of your day.
And you too, Kevin. I really appreciate this. This has been a lot of fun, and you're a great guy and a great host, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks, man. All right.
Take care.
We'll talk soon.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.